This is the WHTC Morning News with Gary Stevens on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
Welcome back to the WHTC Morning News for this Thursday, April the 7th. Tuesday mornings, we normally chat with this gentleman, but because of circumstances that some of it which was beyond our control, some of it was not, we chat with him this morning at this time. He is Fred Upton, the U.S. House Representative from St. Joseph, on the other end of our Zoom connection this morning. I think you were a little bit busy when we were supposed to talk on Tuesday, Fred.
Well, I was a little bit busy, but I did also have 2 breakfasts that morning. So it made things, and the commute was rough coming in. So I knew that it was going to be trouble. And anyway, it is a different routine that we're doing this Thursday. It just shows that this is really not canned, right?
It certainly is not. And by the way, I'm glad you didn't get bitten by that fox.
Yeah, I love foxes. I have them here in my neighborhood in Virginia where our house is. I've got them in St. Joe. And I was suggesting to the Biden administration that they might want to pardon the fox like he did the turkeys on Thanksgiving, but I think it's too late. I thought there was plenty of room in the Shenandoahs, but yeah, I guess it was a little bit of a hazard. But one of my colleagues, as you may know.
Yeah, unfortunately, it turned out that the fox did have rabies, and now they're probably going to have to put down the fox's cubs as a result of that. But that's a little bit light. Yeah, a little bit light, unfortunately. You were busy on Tuesday. You made the announcement, and certainly it was a tough one to deliver, but you did. And first of all, what has been the reaction since you made the announcement that you will not run for re-election and instead will retire from Congress at the end of this term, which is the end of the year?
Well, the reaction, first of all, I just have to I'm so grateful for my supporters. It's been a real honor and pleasure to represent Southwest Michigan for so many years and go through 25 different elections. I actually like elections. It would have been a doozy, that's for sure. But, our district changed quite dramatically. Many of my St. Joe, it's where I lived, St. Joe voters were put with Lake Erie. And of course, from my house, I can actually see Lake Michigan. So things changed. They were out of my control. It was affirmed by the federal judges just this last Friday. So that was sort of the nail in the coffin in terms of what I was going to do. And as we all know, Bill Huizenga has been a friend of mine a long time. But frankly, the reaction has been very positive. It's almost like you're there for the funeral and everyone's saying good things about you instead of being hopefully up with the Lord. But it's been a lot of very positive reviews, certainly from both sides of the aisle. But, I'm not done. We have a lot of unfinished business to do. In fact, immediately after I gave my floor speech on Tuesday, I went to my health subcommittee hearing on mental health. We've got, I think, 19 bills that we're looking at, all bipartisan. We know the needs of that. And I looked around at the gallery of former chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee. All were bipartisan in terms of getting things done. We actually hung the portrait of my successor yesterday, Greg Walden. And, the Speaker of the House came, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee came, the Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy, came. They all spoke. I was the MC. And we talked about bipartisanship and trying to get things done. And of course, that's always been my MO, that's for sure. But I will miss not being in the fray, but we got a lot of stuff to do, and I'll be very active to the very end. That's for sure.
We'll talk a little bit about Fred's future plans in a future interview. Your campaign did put out an ad buy earlier this year in the Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo television markets, as well as some cable outlets as well. Some might say that was a campaign ad, although you never officially announced that you were going to run for re-election. Did that buy sort of was a factor in your decision that maybe it's time to go in a different direction, or what?
Well, we had actually, frankly, we had a lot of encouragement from folks, and we laid out our message. I'm not a rubber stamp, and if you want that, I'm not your guy. But we talked about a few things that I've been active on. Obviously, our name ID is 100%, but it was, yeah, it was it was an ad that I taped. It was on me. We didn't have any, a lot of footage or anything else. Did reach into Battle Creek. Of course, that's new part of the district now. Ottawa County, which I've represented, a long time ago, but and it was on just two media markets, Grand Rapids as well as Calgary. I guess it ran in South Bend as well because that covers part of Berrien County. But it was, it encouraged people to reach out and begin to think about what was going to happen, and it had a very positive effect.
Now, let's talk about a couple of things going on in Congress that I wanted to have you touch upon. The House is approving a bill to document Russian war crimes committed in Ukraine, stating Russian troops have intentionally attacked civilians, taking hostages, and destroying non-military buildings since they invaded 6 weeks ago, and the bill now heads to the Senate. Your thoughts on that legislation, Fred?
Well, I voted for it last night. It passed overwhelmingly in the House. A few people voted no. But I got to say this, I've already, it's early this morning. I've already watched some of the news. I just watched the president of Poland, President Duda, again, say that he really thought this was genocide. I talked to a number of legislators from Ukraine. I'm a member of the Ukraine caucus. I've been there a couple of times. We've talked about that before, but just yesterday I did a Zoom with some of my colleagues from Ukraine, or counterparts, I guess I should say. Some that I know actually pretty well. One described just this last week when I was with her, when she was in DC, about her 2-year-old. And while she was with us, literally the app on her phone rang, and it was an air raid siren that she has connected. But to see what happened, the snipers that are actually killing children, mothers, why? I mean, it's just outrageous. And again, the footage this morning, and we've learned as well that when Mariupol finally opens up, I mean, these are cities that, literally 1 million people, but people, a lot of Americans have never heard of them before. It's even going to be worse. So clearly we have to move forward on this. And I'd like to think the Senate will take it up very quickly.
Another measure that was signed into law by President Biden was the sweeping postal reform bill. Gary Peters, the Democratic U.S. Senator from suburban Detroit, a major factor in that. Yes, it's going to ensure some things, but it's going to raise the price of the forever stamp up to 60 cents a parcel. Your thought about the reform bill? Well,
it needed to be done. This was a bipartisan bill. It's been kicking around, I guess you could say, for a lot of years, and nothing really happened. But it restores some of the financial underpinnings of the post office. Remember, this is in the U.S. Constitution. It may not be economical to deliver a letter to Nome, Alaska, to just pick a little town, but they got to do it. And for postal employees, they pay into Medicare. They need to be covered under Medicare. And so rather than having a losing revenue institution, this is going to shore it up, which was why we had an overwhelming bipartisan vote. Our leadership supported it. I voted for it. And the postal authorities really needed to have this thing done. A lot of good reforms that were in there that literally we've been debating for 10 or 12 years. It didn't matter if it was Republican or Democratic speaker or administration. It needed to be done. And thank goodness we came together and finally got it to the president's desk.
And one final thing, Fred, you were not a part of this House Energy and Commerce Committee subcommittee hearing on gas price gouging, but certainly you probably have heard some of the fallout from that hearing yesterday as some of the oil executives tried to explain why prices are so high. You touched upon it a couple of weeks ago when we chatted with us about the fact that there was going to be some hearings into price gouging. You think anything's going to get done?
Well, I didn't participate. I don't serve on that subcommittee. And actually, I've not talked to fellow colleagues that did, as we had a very busy day yesterday, and it bled right into the portrait hanging of Greg Walden, of which I was the MC. So literally had about 2 minutes to spare. But a couple things. I was disappointed that the Secretary of Energy, and it's my understanding that she was asked to come testify, and she didn't do so. Second, this is supply and demand. Our focus really ought to be something that I led when I was chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, That is, look for a North American energy independent plan. I'm hearing now I see on TV all these administration folks saying, well, we've asked the companies to explore and do more. Well, that wasn't their message even a couple months ago. I mean, you look at the Keystone Pipeline, you look at the debate that we have here in Michigan on Line 5. I'll tell you, if that line was cut off, our price of gas would probably go up another $1 to a gallon. Supply and demand is something that many of us learned back in 6th and 7th grade. That's what is driven the price here. We ought to be looking, obviously, more fuel efficient vehicles. We've been on that path for a long time, but we want to create the jobs here. When I went to Ukraine and led a delegation there, we talked about the export of LNG to make sure that we didn't have to rely, Europe didn't have to rely on Russian energy. We can do it here. We can create the jobs here, and we can export it to our allies. So whether it be nuclear, whether it be a whole number of different things, I support the all of the above policy, but it's supply and demand. That's what's driven up the price.
He is Fred Upton. He joins us normally Tuesday mornings to talk about what's going on in Washington. We appreciate his time today. Can we get together again this coming Tuesday, or because we got Easter, we might have some breaks coming up?
I think we got some breaks coming up. Congress is going to be out. But we'll figure it out soon, but it probably won't be next Tuesday.
Okay, sounds good, though. Fred, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon. And that is Fred Upton on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.